good morning and welcome to the show. Thank you for waking up with us. Siyakuvusela nawo lo sivutsele losibukela kulo mhla ekseni kumabona kutse kanjalo na YouTube Eswatini TV. It is the 20th of September 2023. Only 8 days left to the secondary elections. Good morning and welcome. My name is Lungelele Makakula. I'm with my co-host Umgweni Sfiso. How are you this morning?
Doing very well, Lulu. Everything happening in the backdrop of the United Nations General Assembly currently taking place kona enhlokodolopa yase New York. We will be providing a few developments la qhubeka kolena njengoba sibonile ukuthi nesilo semhlaba sikhona nalabanye ke baholi bemave kuyakhulumisa nje tona tindzaba ukuthi sesihambe kangakanani kushaya emagoli amhlaba la khonsako ema sustainable development goals. Sibonile ke itole ama speeches nje if you are following online even through the United Nations pages, you are following the proceedings there. Yeah, one of my speeches guti savele aqalile, but I'm confident that we will have a detailed report as to ukuthi live la kangwana njengoba nalo siltimbanza kanye lena lo msebenzi sihamba kanjani. Pholile Mazia is there with the outside broadcast crew, but asipha nje tindzaba letimnanzi ekuthensilo semhlaba njengoba silapha naso sithini silive la kangwana nanathi kuwo wona emagola amhlaba la khonsako.
Yeah, sisakubuka wona nje umhlangano we-UN General Assembly Sfiso. I think sekubhekekile nokuthi kubanjwe ingxoxo ngadoda tempilo. WHO nje wavete indzaba yokuthi kusukela lamuhla nje kutawucala umhlangano lomkhulu lobuke dona tindzaba the health nangalesine nangalesihlanu kanjalo. I think nje indzaba lenkulu indzaba labatayikhulumisa ngayo indzaba ye-TB lesibonakele nako ngathi sekunama cases lamaningi. So we will have a follow up nje ngaloko lokuchubekako khona New York.
It's going to be interesting indeed kuva lawo ma discussions lawo lungelela. I think sibonile titfombeni nabasibikela nje inkosi nayihamba nabafika eNew York sibonile indvuna yaka health ukuthi lanayo is part of the delegation lena. I think I did see the new PS yaka health babekhanya mabuza as well ukuthi naye ulena. So I think it is a good opportunity for Eswatini as well ekutheni bamunye leyo information and that knowledge sharing letabe yendeka khona enhlokodolopa eNew York eAmerica lapho khona bakhulumisa tona leto ndzaba leto nje lungelela. And other developmental issues as well, just outside of health, will be spoken about. But our interest today is on health for a particular reason.
Yes, on that note, on the 17th of September, umhlaba wonke bogubha ilanga le World Patient Safety Day. It is dedicated to the theme engaging patients for patient safety. The day aims to influence stakeholders, including patients, families, policymakers, healthcare leaders, healthcare workers, and patient organizations to work collaboratively towards co-designing healthcare policies and safety interventions. Lilanga World Patient Safety Day inhlangano kamhlaba United Nations yalisukumisa ngeminyaka wa 2019 likujanjalo mhla ka 17 September njengoba sengivetile. Kanti ke likule nyanga nje litiko letempilo lapha ekhaya litawubele ligubha nje losuku yonke nje lenyanga the month of September. Ngakho silabe sikhulumisana naye Thabang Masangane lo manager quality khona itiko letempilo ngetinhlelo letendekako nje mhlambe letinhlelo tendiwa ngelolitiko kuzama kwena isiqiniseko sokuthi ema patients akuleli aphephile. Tiningi tindzaba letivakalako letendekako etibhedlela takuleli sifuna ukuva ukuthi ngabe vele mhlambe uhulumeni uthatha tiphi inyathelo kuzama kuphephisa leto disebenti leto sibe sinaye namhla ngafa 6.
And here's another development leqhubeka ke tindzabeni tetempilo indzaba ye mental health. Siyathi ke ukuthi njalo ngenyanga ya October mhla ka 10 kuba mental health day mhlaba wonke lilanga ke lelo labekwa inhlangano yakamhlaba yona United Nations ekutheni kube lusuku lesikhulumisa tona tindzaba te mental health. The biggest topic now is overcoming depression stigma indzaba nayo lehambelana nayo mental health. We will have Dr. Gagu Matsebula. He's a specialist psychiatrist kukhulumisa yona leyo ndzaba leyo nje lomuhla kulandzela ukuthi World Health wa reporter ukuthi they urge mental health decision makers and advocates ekutheni they should step up their commitment and action kushintsha ema attitudes ema actions nema approaches to mental health. But again, its determinants and mental health care donke leto ndzaba leto tiyakhulunyiswa kunema stats that are very alarming that we will dive into naye Dr. Gagu Matsebula umkholo when he joins us on the show kukhulumisa yona na ndzaba lemcoka nakangaka.
All right, at this moment, let's take a look at your leading headlines from your local newspapers. Asicala ngekubuka i-Times of Eswatini lomhla kungilesithafu lethamba embili nje tindzaba lethamba embili. Liswati truck driver nabbed with over 200,000 emalangeni daha. Ngiteke lethamba embili kuletinye thamba embili nasibuka nje likhet for call for elections to start afresh in Gamkhweli voters roll drama. Some residents conduct fresh verification after claims 140 people not from the area voted. More on that story on page 2. Kanti kuletinye thamba embili allows 16 turned back voters to vote. Ngokusho kwenkantolo kuletinye leti hamba embili bacede found with cell phone again. More on that story on page 7. Kanti kuletinye thamba embili public transport owners offer 5.7% cushion to workers.
Kanzi-ke kutemidlalo Times of Eswatini, the leading story sithi-ke it is a big derby clash kuMomo Cup 2023 playoffs draw le divider-ke ema capital city. So-ke Bulls nema Birds will cross swords for spot in main Momo Cup. Other developing stories under that story dikhona-ke lapha kuleyo headline leyo. Kanzi-ke lenye lehamba embili ithi Burkina Faso blank about Sitsebe promise fireworks. This one speaks to Eswatini and Burkina Faso that have never played before, but the visitors are content they will punish their rivals, or rather. Lenye lehamba embili comes from the international front. Manchester City favorites Ancelotti. Those are the leading headlines. Good Times of Eswatini this morning.
Leading headlines on the Eswatini Observer lomhla ekuseni. King makes 3 calls to African governments. Njengobona nje lapha kunesithombe various stakeholders who attended the Africa Strategic Investment Alliance Forum, where His Majesty King Mswati III appealed for cooperation and support for the youth. More on that story on page 4. Looking at hamba embili 16 run to court and they demand to vote. They claim they were denied rights to vote during the primary elections eSigangeni. Nasibukele letinye lethamba embili, Jabez angers parents in school trip mess. Nasibukele letinye lethamba embili, gospel star Nhlanhla Mbingo passes on.
Kutemidlalo Eswatini Observer, the leading story is Isugile Momo Cup as the Birds and Bull renew a rivalry. Other teams will be Black Swallows that will take on Lozita Spurs. Games to be played at Mavuso on Saturday. Entrance fee ibhaliwe nayo lapha kuthi itawuba malini. Kanzi-ke lenye lehamba embili ithi opponents a closed book kusho baqeqeshi. Those are the leading stories. Good time. Eswatini Observer, I beg your pardon, lomuhla ekuseni.
Asikena sibuka Eswatini Daily News lomhla kungilesithathu letihamba embili, King's call to governments, the diaspora for the youth. Nasibuka letinye thamba embili, hiring more teachers, a good move, but ngekusho kwaSnat. So you can read more on that story on page 4. Kanti nasibuka letinye thamba embili, AG opposes Futi's employees' application to vote for director.
Derby delight in Momo Cup playoff. Bitter rivals Mbabane Swallows and Mbabane Highlanders will face off in the playoff semi-final of the 2023 Momo Cup on Saturday in an epic clash. Find more on that story on page 23 of the Eswatini Daily News Sport. Kanzi-ke lenye lehamba embili, Manzini Wanderers missed out by 500,000 votes, that's 500,000 votes. Leyenteke ukuthi iManzini Wanderers miss out kule competition lena. Kanti-ke on the international front, it's again Manchester City favorites to win the UEFA Champions League.
All right, so 9 minutes after 6 as well makithi Spain itindzaba teSwatini.
Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eVeni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letentiya ngaleso sikhatsi, tindzaba letide magama lacosheme, letitsembekile, letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni.
Kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele, siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letichamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lotiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Kwalomuhla sivele singene kuto ke tindzaba lomhla ekuseni ilitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfo sisekelo selicinise tinhlangotsi letinyenti kutemtsetfo letifaka ekhatsi tinhlelo tekusombulula tinkinga tetimali kanye netemabhizinisi. Kanti-ke indvuna yalelitiko Pholilesha Country itsi litiko likhonile kwakha tinkantolo leto letitawusombulula emacala laphatselene netimali letincane ema-small claims court. Kanti-ke indvuna itsi lokugcamile kakhulu kutsi litiko ngekusebentisana nelihhovisi lelijaji lelikhulu likhonile-ke kwengeta emajaji latawenta kutsi umsebenti wekusebenta emacala uhambe masinyane.
Ngekubona kwanza kwetikhalo temaswati ladzinga kusombululelwa tinkinga letiphatselene netikwenete tetimali letidzinga kusombululeka masinyane letsinsa kakhulu bosomabhizinisi bakuleli, litiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo likhonile kufeza umgomo wekwakha tinkantolo letitawubhekana nalamacala ngekuphutfuma. Indvuna yaleli tiko Pholilesha Country itsi hulumende ukhonile nekusukumisa luhlelo lolutawusita kutsi emaswati lawo langakhoni kubhadala abameli asitakale nawo.
Nato-ke le small claims court eseyasebenta amaswati akhona ukuthi atfole lusito kuleto tinkantolo leto letincane. Nabo somabhizinisi nabo-ke bakhala ukuthi tindzaba tetfu nasinendzaba njengosomabhizinisi ufuna sinendzaba isetshenzwe khona nyalo. Sabukisana-ke nalapho i-commercial court yaba established Chief Justice wawa appointa emajaji akhona ayasebenta sekulungiswa nje leto tintfo letinye lekuhambisana nje nekusebenta kwetinkantolo kepha-ke singuhulumende saprovide konke infrastructure nako konke inkantolo nje ikhona it's up and running. Lokhu-ke kutawusita ukuthi labo backlog tintfo tikhone kuhamba faster in the judicial process. Lokunye project le tawasita kakhulu emaswati i-legal aid. Sesisukumisile-ke lihhovisi le-legal aid sebanawo mahhovisi nama-satellite offices batawube basebentela ma-police station latsite lapho batawube baya khona nekuphuma ngaphandle kakhulu sifuna kuphuma siye kuwe emaswati kuyofundzisa nama-communities nje ukuthi basho ukuthi tinendzaba leti sihlupha kakhulu tihambelana nanawo bese-ke laba ka-legal aid bayakhona kufundzisa lamaswati.
Indvuna itsi litiko lisemkhankasweni wekulungisa nemitsetfo lefaka ekhatsi indzaba yemtsetfo wekusebenta kwebameli kuleminye. Tindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginaThemba Shabangu eMbabane.
Live leSwatini njengoba-ke lilive lesihlanu e-Afrika lelikhicita liphindze litsengise shukela linematfuba lamahle ekukhulisa nekucinisa timakethe letikhona kulelive kati le-Afrika. Kanti-ke letimakethe tifaka ekhatsi ikhomesa kanye nesadak kuletinye.
Inkampani yashukela ye-Eswatini Sugar Association ikhiphe umbiko wayo wekusebenta wemnyaka wa 2022 kuya ku-2023 loveta kutsi leSwatini live lemashumi 28 emhlabeni lelikhicita liphindze litsengisele lamanye emave shukela. Lo mbiko uthi live lisematfubeni lamahle ukuthi likhone kwengeta timakethe ikakhulu evakatini le-Afrika. Lo mbiko uthi kungumanje leSwatini linetimakethe emaveni lasendas nesifundza lese-Afrika i-SADC eluhlelweni lwekutsengiselana kwemave ase-Afrika ngaphandle kwetincabekelwano kanye netinhlangano tekutsengiselana nemave lasempumalanga neningizimu ne-Afrika ekhomesa kanjalo netinhlangano temave lasempumalanga i-East African Community. Lo mbiko uthi emave latsenga kakhulu shukela weleSwatini afaka ekhatsi leningizimu Afrika, leLesotho, Botswana kanye neNamibia njengoba shukela amtsenga ngentengo lebhekekile. Lo mbiko uveta kutsi tikhona tinkinga letibhekene naloluhlangothi lwashukela esigabeni sentengo yashukela lengeniswa kulamanye emave. Lokunye lokukhombisa kucindzetela loluhlangothi yinkinga yendzaba yelihlelo i-South African Sugar Cane Value Chain Master Plan njengoba inemgomo wekukhutsata kutsi kubete shukela longena kulela live leNingizimu Afrika kepha kudliwe shukela lokhicitwa khona. Umkhicito washukela lothengiswe ngaphansi kwenhlangano isakhu ukhombise kwehla njengoba eminyakeni wa 2021 kuya ku-2022 ufike ku-67% kanti eminyakeni wa 2022 kuya ku-2023 ube ku-66%. Lokubangelwe ngumkhicito lomncane lokwende ukuthi-ke timakethe takasakhu bese tiyabiwa. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni kanti titfombe titfolakale ekhasini letekuchumana le-Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority.
Masipala welidolobha leMbabane sawufinyelelise lusito lwetempilo kubantfu labangetulu kwetinkhulungwane letinge-25 esikhatsini nje lesingangeminyaka. Kanti-ke lo masipala ukwente lokhu ngaphansi kweluhlelo lwakhe lwekucinisekisa ukuthi sive seMbabane singileso lesiphilile nalesiphephile. Lokhu kucuketfwe ngumbiko walo masipala weminyaka wa 2022 kuya kumnyaka wa 2023.
Lo mbiko losetawudzingidvwa tinhlangothi letehlukene telidolobha leMbabane letifaka ekhatsi takhamiti kuleli viki uchaza ukuthi lolu sito lwetemphilo loluniketwe ngulo masipala ulinikete ngekuthi aphumele ngephandle emimangweni yaseMbabane kanti labanye balithole ngekuthi bete emtholampilo wamasipala. Tinhlangothi lanikete lusito lwetemphilo kuto masipala tifaka ekhatsi kugomisa abantwana, kunakekela bomake labatetfwele, kugomela umkhuhlane i-COVID-19 kanye nekusoka. Lo mbiko uchubeka uthi emajazi emkhwenyana langetulu kwetigidzi letimbili nawo aniketwe sive ukuthi sitivikele etifeni telicansi letifaka ekhatsi ligciwane i-HIV. Ngase kunakekeleni impilo yebantfu labadzala lo masipala usebenzisane nelitiko letempilo kanye netibhedlela letitimele kubahlola nekubelapha tifo letifaka ekhatsi leto letingatsatselwana. Masipala weMbabane uphindze wenta siciniseko sekuthi labakhubatekile abasaleli ngaphandle njengoba kuletinye tinhlelo tekubambisana nesive. Lo masipala wesekele bantfwana besikolo sasekwethembeni kuthi bakhone kungenela temidlalo. Waphindze wasekela inhlangano yalabangeva etindlebeni kuthi emalunga ayo angenele umdlalo lowatiwa ngele-Mayors Tournament lebe ubanjelwe kaManzini edolobheni. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Mbongwa Dube eMbabane.
Lobukete kuphepha ngetebuchwephesha enkampanini lelawula tekuchumana eveni i-Escom nokuthula hlophe sebexwayise sive ukuthi siwadi umtsetfo lowengamele tekuphepha kutebuchwephesha kute-ke bantfu bangetuti khanza baboshwa tandla netinyawo. Hlophe abekhuluma ngetekuphepha ngekusebentisa tindlela letinsha tekuchumana pheceleti i-cyber security ngelilanga lwesibili.
Ukucala kufuneka uwadi lo mthetho ngoba nje lokudlangile nyalo ngunako ukucalana lesikwendako lokho kwabo cyberbullying kokuthi ngibhizi ngiyacala ngiyakuhlambalata kuleti tabongcondo lomshini angithembe ukuthi angeke ngiboshwe. Ungasuka wena uhambe yokumangalela na ungimangalele le emaphoyiseni bangangibopha for lobo kucala lobo and lobo kucala lobo ifine yakhona 100,000 emalangeni noma 2 years imprisonment noma ke kokubili. So ngithi umuntu ngiloyo naloyo asekawufunze lo mthetho awadi lo mthetho ngoba lokunye siyakwenda namuhla singacabanga ukuthi kubucala kanti vele kubucala. Diningi tindlela tekutiphephisa uyibhizinisi. Kukhona lokhu lesithi uyakuthenga utokutiphephisa kona ufake bo firewall ufake bo antivirus protect machine. Kepha lokumcoka kakhulu ngiye ngithi emabhizinisini labaye bakubukele phasi ngilokufundzisa ti-70 te-business ngabona lokucala lokungenteka.
Sisitawuthatha nati lesithandza kutitfola noma ke kutemukela enhlokodolobha eNew York eMelika silo semhlaba singenele umhlangano webaholi bemave enhlangano yakamhlaba enhlokohhovisi yakamhlaba eNew York. Lo mhlangano uvulwe ngekwemtsetfo ngumabhalane jikelele wenhlangano yakamhlaba His Excellency Antonio Guterres lovete nebumcokwa bekugcina kuthula emhlabeni. Waphindze wakhutsata abaholi bemave ukuthi basebentisane babumbane balwe netinkinga letikhungetse umhlaba.
Silo semhlaba sifike enhlokohhovisi yakamhlaba hlangene kutawungenela umhlangano webaholi bemave enhlangano yakamhlaba wemashumi elasikhombisa nesiphohlongo Ingonyama ingcenye yabaholi bemavela abangetulu kwelikhulu nemashumi lamane labakulo mhlangano. Silo nebaholi bemave bahlangene ngephansi kwesicubulo lesithi Rebuilding Trust and Reciting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards peace, prosperity, progress and sustainability for all. Lamaphuzu entuthuko le Kusile langephansi kwemgomo wa 2030 alishumi nesikhombisa kanye afaya khathi timiso letibekiwe tekucedza buphuya kukhuthata impumelelo nekuphila kwebantu kanye nekuvikela umhlaba. Lo mhlangano uvule ngekomthetho ngumabhalane jikelele wakamhlabuhlangene Antonio Guterres lovete ngebomcoka bekubuketa emaphezu entuthuko. Guterres uphindze waveta nangebomcoka bekugcina kuthula emhlabeni kucatulula tinkinga letikhungethe umhlaba kutawubane kuphila phindze futhi kuthuthuke bantu emhlabeni kanye nekuqinisekisa ukudla lokwanele.
To apply that determination to the challenges of today, being faithful to the Charter of the United Nations. Excellencies, it starts with determination to uphold the Charter's pledge for peace. Yet, instead of ending the scourge of war, we are seeing a surge of conflicts, coups, and chaos. If every country fulfilled its obligations under the Charter, the right to peace would be guaranteed.
Mengameli welive leMelika His Excellency Joseph Biden wethule inkulumo yakhe embi kwesilo nebaholi bemave. Mengameli uvete kabanti ngekubambisana nekubumbana ekulweni nebungoti lobungahle buthikabete kuthula nekuphepha emhlabeni, ingcubekela embili yemhlaba nemalungelo ebantfu. Biden uphindze wacela emave emhlaba ukuthi asekela phindze futhi emene live le-Ukraine waphindze futhi wethembisa kusekela inhlangano yobunye bemave e-Afrika nenhlangano yetemnotho yemave lasentshonalanga ne-Afrika njengoba kusabuketwa tinkinga letikhungethe live le-Niger nelive le-Gabon.
The United Nations must continue to preserve peace, prevent conflict and alleviate human suffering. And we embrace nations stepping up to lead in new ways and to seek new breakthroughs on hard issues.
Nomhlangano webaholi uqhubeka nje live le-Ukraine solo libhekene nebumatima bemphilo khona ekhathi kwalela live ne-Russia. His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky uvetele umhlangano ukuthi ucela umbambise uphindze usekele live le-Ukraine kulesimo lesichubekako nekuba medima. Letinye tindzaba letikhulunyisiwe kulomhlangano tindzaba tehlakalo letenteke even le-Morocco lapho kutamatame khona umhlaba kunye nelive le-Libya lapho kudzabuwe khona emadamu kwaba netikhukhula. Kubuketwe indlela futhi yekusita lamave lamabili. Kula manye emaphuzu entuthuko le Kusile leSwatini lisebenta medema futhi litimisele kwenta siciniseko ukuthi ayafezeka njengoba kulamanye emaphuzu liyabonakala lenta kahle sesekhona lapha eveni leMelika emhlanganweni wakamhlaba silo semhlaba sibheke ukuthi siphefumulele umhlaba etindzabeni kubika Pholile Maziya eNew York eveni leMelika.
Kuqhubekselwe embili kutekwa kwelicala lamashumi shongwe lo mangalelwe ngutema Bhengeta Shongwe ekutheni usolakala ukuthi ufuna kuthengisa likhaya lakubo. Lenzaba beyisembi kwelijaji lelikhulu Mamsi Dlamini.
Ingenile ngalesibili indzaba lethinta mashumi shongwe kanye nemvodzakati yakhe tema Bhengeta Shongwe embi kwelijaji lelikhulu Mamsi Dlamini. Ummeli wa tema Bhengeta Shongwe longinomthandazo Gule kukhanye ukuthi abengekho enkantolo kepha-ke ummeli wamashumi Shongwe Sandile Dlamini abekhona. Lijaji Mamsi Dlamini libute ummeli wamashumi ukuthi inkantolo yente njani loncomeke ukuthi lendzaba ichubekiselo embili. Lokunye lokuvelile ukuthi kukhona timphepha betishoda lijaji lelitsite kude kwatiseka lokube khona ngalendzaba. Ummeli wamashumi uchubeke wancoma ukuthi lendzaba ivele ichubekiselo embili kude lamaphepha atawuphelela ngalokubhekekile. Leli cala liphathelene nempahla iproperty njengobe kunetinsolo tekuthi Mashumi Shongwe ufuna kuthengisa leli khaya. Temabhengeta Shongwe lo indvodzakati ya Shongwe wachazela enkantolo ukuthi uyala ukuthi leli khaya lithengiswe njengobe kulikhaya lakubo. Mashumi Shongwe wavetela enkantolo ukuthi akusilo nani liciniso njengoba ude emandla kuleli khaya. Shongwe watshela enkantolo ukuthi emahhovisini labuke kwabiwa kwemafa wakubeka ngalokusobala ukuthi ude sifiso sekuzuza ngobe leli khaya lebantfwana lokungitemabhengeta Shongwe kanye naSibusiso Shongwe. Temabhengeta wavetela enkantolo ukuthi wabona kukhangiswa ngaleli khaya lakubo lapho kuthengiswa khona emakhaya netindlu. Lijaji Mamsi Dlamini ligcineke likhiphe isijubo sekuthi lendzaba ibuye mhla ka-26 September 2023. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginaThemba Shabangu enkantolo lenkulu eMbabane.
Tinhlelo deliver leSwatini letihlose kugucula umonakalo lesewentekile emvelweni tingaba imphumelelo uma abantu labasha bangaba ingcenye yato. Lokhu kushiwo nguBelusile Mhlanga longumchumanisi welibandla lekonga imvelo kuleli. Kanti-ke Belusile bekakhuluma ngesikhathi lenhlangano ihlanganise tinhlangano tebantfu labasha letingephansi kwenhlangano ihlumisa kute ubukisana nje ngematfuba lakhona eluhlangotsini lwetekulima kanye-ke nekonga imvelo.
Celela ama-groups ebantu labasha labo ketona tindzaba tetemvelo ukuthi namhla sesike nje sesibe nemfundasikolo lapho khona sitawufundisana ngalokuhlukahlukile lokufaka ekhathi tindzaba tekulima ngekonga phindze futhi sibuke nato tindzaba tekuthi njengoba bakhele tinhlangano labantu labasha ngutiphi tingoni letikhona event lapho khona bangathola kusitakala ngetimali kwenta lawo ma-projects labafuna kwenta nekokuthi ngaphandle ngikuphi lapho khona futhi bangathola khona kusitakala nekokuthi-ke nasebabonile-ke lama-funding opportunities babhala kanjani-ke le proposal njengoba sibonile ukuthi esikhathini letiningi bantu labasha bevungaza ukuthi ticelo tabo mhlambe akusitelo temukelako.
Lo munye webantu labasha labangenele lo mhlangano Zandisile Hawu uthi sesiphelile isikhathi sekuthi bantu labasha badonsele emuva kutekulima.
Kumcoka ukuthi bantu labasha singene kuyo in-agriculture ngokuthi siyakudzinga kudla sonke siyadla so singameli ukuthi labanye basakhele lokudla asakhele ukudla lakhaya sitokhona ukuthenga lakhaya kutobe sekuyashiphela side nalokuthi le indlu lesidlako iqhamukaphi singaphethe ku-importer from outside.
Inhlangano lesekela kongiwa kwemvelo emaveni lange-28 kuleli vekati le-Afrika i-Voluntary Service Overseas lekanekise eveni leZimbabwe beyingcenye yalo mhlangano kutokhuthaza abantu labasha kuthi bafake ticelo tekucala emabhizinisi etekulima ngekonga imvelo. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Mbongwa Dube nasebenele mthetho kamanzini.
Kanti-ke kulenye indzaba lesithanda kuyitfola lechamuka khona enhlokodolobha iNew York. Inkosikati Make Lamahlangu ihlanganyelene nalabanye bomengameli kuphukisana-ke lichaza lelingadlalwa baholi ekutfutfukiseni timphilo tebantfu. Lo mcimbi longenelwe inkosikati uhlale wenteka njalo ngeminyaka kanti-ke wekusekela baholi bemave kufeza emaphuzu yentfutfuko lekhonsile.
Lo mcimbi bewugcile kakhulu ekubuketeni lichaza lelingadlalwa ngute-fashion ekwenteni impilo yebantfu ukuthi ibe sezingeni kanti futhi kukhunjulwe lichaza lelidlalwe nguQueen Elizabeth wesibili welive leNgilandi ekuthuthukiseni impilo yebantfu emaveni ka-Commonwealth nemhlaba wonke. Inkosikati lebeyisingethwe ngumfana Nkosilindiwe ikhonjiswe timphahla letitfungwe batfungi labachamukisa mhlaba wonke. Afrika lohlabene kuto tekuthunga kube nguThebe Magugu welive leNingizimu Afrika. Isikhulumi lesicavile kulomsebenzi kube nguJean Shafirov lo linxusa nesikhulumeli senhlangano yalabeswele eMelika iHuman Feed the Hungry Organization lothe likhulu lichaza lelingadlalwa baholi ekuthuthukiseni impilo zabantu.
And this week we celebrate not only the United States but the importance of coming together to create change in our world, change that is essential and change that can only happen through coming together, communicating together and working together. As I look around this room, I see many leaders. It is our obligation to be important role leaders. It is our obligation to create positive environments in our countries where people can work together as teams.
Kulo msebenzi kuvelile ukuthi ite fashion idingadlala lichaza lelikhulu ekulweni nebuphuya emhlabeni nekusite emave ukuthi akhona kufeza emaphuzu entuthuko ema-SDGs ngeminyaka wa-2030. Ngakulokunye silo semhlaba nenkosikazi Makela Mahlangu singenele sidlo sakusihlwa ngekumenywa ngumengameli welive leMelika His Excellency Joe Biden nemkamengameli Dr. Jill Biden. Lokhu kulandzela kuvulwa komthetho kwemhlangano wokwakha imithetho nemigomo yakamhlaba lokungumhlangano we-78 webaholi bemave akamhlaba. Lesidlo sakusihlwa singenelwe baholi bemave labangetulu kwelikhulu-40 labalapha eNew York. Edinzabeni bikapholile Maziya eNew York, eMelika.
Ibandla letelukhetho nemincele Elections and Boundaries Commission lathi sasive ukuthi kuvota ngalokukhetsekile special voting kutawuba mhla tinge-26 kulesetulu 26 September 2023. Kanti lukhetho lolukhulu lona lutawubanjwa mhla tinge-29 kulesetulu 29 September 2023. Ngete ngasala nasakha live letfu.
Kanzike kutemidlalo licembu lembabane Highlanders lidvonsane nelicembu lembabane Swallows. Licembu lePicks Peak Black Swallows lona lidvonsane nelicembu leLozitha emidlalweni yema-playoffs yemchutselwano yeMomo Cup yeminyaka wa-2023. Lamacembu lamane ladvonsene mabili wona ayodlala nelicembu leNsingizini Hotspurs kanye neMoneni Pirates kuma-semi-finals alendzebe. Kanzike kuletinye temidlalo lethambe embili Mlungisi Dlamini lobuke tekumaketha nekuchumana enkampanini ye-Eswatini National Provident Fund. Utsike bantfu bakhomba kubhalisa ngelizinga lelisetulu kakhulu. Kanzike ngilabo labafuna kungenela umchutselwano wembuko marathon yalonyaka. Dlamini utsi bangetulu kwetinkulungwane letine lesebavele babhalisele kungenela lo mchutselwano lotawucala mhla ka-1 ngenyanga yeMphala. Asitephethe kanjalo tindzaba lomhla ekuseni kwalo muhle sibuke nasi isimo selitulo sitabahlola imarket emva kwaloko sibese sibuya nebelitiko letemphilo.
Umsakato wetithombe Eswatini TV ehlangothini lebetindzaba umengemumo ngalesihlanu mhla tinge-27 kulesetu kutsaselita lo msakato titabe titsacitsisaka kutototine tifundza telive leSwatini totonke tikhungo tekuvotela tikuletsela konke lokutabe kwenteka elikhethweni elikhulu. Kanti-ke indzaba itabe icale mhla tinge-26 kulesetulu esigabeni la kutabe kuvota khona labo labaniketwe imvumo yekuvota esigabeni lesithi special voting.
Kusukela ngesimbi yesikhombisa ekuseni kute kuphume yona imiphumela, libandla letindzaba litawube lifake likhala phansi licubungula liphindze libuya nato tinjengobe tinjalo likulethela bukhoma kumabonakudze wakho nasetinkundleni tekuchumana. Leti tindzaba telukhetfo lolukhulu lwa 2023 singete sasala nakwakhiwa live letfu.
Welcome back. Sakuvusela nawo losanza kwesivulela abesivetela ukuthi isitabe sikhuluma kabanti nge-World Patient Safety Day njengoba litiko li-commemorate yona lenyanga lena kwena siciniseko sekukuthi tigulane tiphephile etibhedlela. Sivetele ukuthi World Patient Safety Day is dedicated to the theme engaging patients for patient safety. Lelanga lena ke lihlose ukuthi li-influence ama-stakeholders lokufaka ekhathi tona tigulane, imindeni, policy makers, healthcare leaders, healthcare workers and also patient organizations to work collaboratively towards co-designing healthcare policies and safety interventions. Lelanga ke litiko letempilo noma ke inhlangano yakamhlabuhlakene yalisukumisa ngeminyaka wa 2019 kanti ke ligujwa njalo mhla ka 17 September. Litiko letempilo kwelibuke ukuthi liligubhele langa inyanga yonke kona siciniseko sokuthi sitigulane tiphephile etibhedlela sina ke lapha Thabang Sangane lo manager quality officer khona itiko letempilo sifuna ukuva nje kabantu inhlelo lendiwa litiko kwenda siciniseko sokuthi ama patients aphephile etibhedlela. Sekuvosele simakhulu Thabang ukuthi ube nathi lo mhla ekseni. I think lelanga lebaleke kakhulu leli cause sitibonile tikhathi te COVID vele sikhathini lapho vele bekumcwa kakhulu ukuthi tigulane dinakekeleke. Ingabe vele mhlambe nasikhuluma nje nge-patient safety sithini nje mhlambe nasiyibuka nje globally and also nasiyibuka la ekhaya.
Asibonge kakhulu Zosele nakubabukele ekhaya. Kwathi nga 2019 umhlangano lomkhulu wemhlaba lokuthiwa i-World Health Assembly so siyabuka nje tindzaba letendeka kwemhlabeni wonke yase isayina ke nemavela amanenge ukuthi njalo ngeminyaka mhla ka 17 ku September kusho sikutawuba isuku la khona sitawubuketa kuphepha khona kwabo bonke abantu abasebenzisa imitholampilo. So ke ngaleso sikhathi leso ke nathi silive sakhona ukuthi sitimbanza kanye ke sisayine. Lebe kubukeketwe kakhulu lapho kwakudindzaba tekuphepha kakhulu kubuka nje ukuthi uyati emhlabeni bantu labanenge etibhedlela noma bayawufuna lisito kodwa ngeke ngakwanisi encenye ngangoti tsite sekuba khona lokunye labakuthola kwesibhedlela noma ncenye kwanisa baphathe kahle kube bengabeka nje tibalo bengabuka ukuthi ngaleso sikhathi leso kwabonakala ukuthi bantu labangu munye umvu kulabalishumi labantu labo kuyendeka basima bangena esibhedlela ukhanze ukuthi incenye sebaphuma sebathole noma letinye tifo lesikubita ukuthi ngema healthcare associated infections emhlabeni and ke mawukubuka futhi lokunye bakhanzakala ukuthi labangu 134 webantu kulamavela sakhula labo bantu labo bathi nabaya esibhedlela ukhanze ukuthi encenye kuyendeka noma ngabe utele operator but ukhanze ukuthi sekunalokunye lokwendekako eceleni noma encenye le operator kabi noma encenye sekunesinjana lesalako basa operate laba 134 kulamave mhlambe la sakhola lesingathi ngama low
medium income countries. Futhi ke lokunye kwatholakala ukuthi ekhulwini labangu 15% elishumi lesihlanu njalo ibudget yelive izama kulungisa tintfo letendeke mhlambe esibhedlela noma emtholampilo ngenxa yokuthi enxa kube nebudlajanyana lokutsite noma lomunye sothuke wathola lesinye sifo asitibali ke mhlambe kukhanze ukuthi abanye sebayiswe etinkantolo nakhona lapho kubukakala ukuthi kune ema percentage lasetulo kakhulu emaveni kakhulu emavela lasathuthuka lokhu kwentiwa yini ke lokunye kwentiwa ukuthi enqedi 70 kukhona letingakunaki noma imishini yethu leminye akusiyo leserviseka kahle kunalabo lokuthiwa nje bo calibration kazi imishini afuna ibohle icheckwa njalo emva kwesikhathi usho nje i-thermometer ukuchecka i-temperature lo mshini lo lokuncane lokubona kokuchecka i-temperature kufuna ukuthi uhlukuchecka kwakona kungatokunika i-reading le khansi enxa isetulo kanzi wena ukushisa nokubanza kwakho kahle so le tinto leto kufuna sile machine yethu ihlale ingile kahle nalabantu labenda lento lekube abantu labaceceshiwe vele so ke vele nala kithi ke ekangwane Eswatini tikhona tinto lesitibonile lefana naleto sibuye sibone ukuthi bantu babeka tikhalo ngaso sonke isikhathi ukhanze silomunye uzibeka ubeleka mhlambe encenye so uphatheke kabe esibhedlela noma lomunye sothola lesinye sifo nyalo njengesikhathi seCovid bokhaza ukuthi labanye inceba yesibhedlela kodwa South Africa bathole iCovid nyalo sekune siyambonga nje uNkulunkulu ukuthi lesifo secholera sikhonile ukuthi singabi ngilesinemandla kangako bokhanze uya esibhedlela encenye utiyele nje uyokhokhela lulwimi litinyo encenye ukhanze ukuthi kulesi sikhathi sobamba titulo noma ubamba tinye tinsimbi ukhathi sothola leso sifo leso so uyadla noma udla ifruit lakho so ubona so ngenwa icholera noma ngomsheko so leto tinto letikhona bavele kusesibhedlela labanye bathole noma bo TB so leto tinto leto ke wabe sosiko lomhlaba ke ku WHO asisinake njalo sonke isikhathi sihle sibuke emuva ukuthi sisephephile yini kulabantu lesibasidako ngikokele lesingako ke ukuthi kule nyanga lena September nje sibuka lokho sibuke emuva ukuthi ibhedlela lethu tihlobile labantu labaniketa lesito bangibantu labafanele yini konke leto tinto leto nemishini yethu isebenza kahle yini singla sitibuka khona tsine ukuthi tisebenzisa tetempilo futhi silitiko letempilo ukuthi lesito lesilinikako abantu balithokodela and futhi vele ba safe yini basalithola lelo tiko lelo sito lelo.
Okay njoba uveta nje babe emasangano ukuthi vele tikhalo tikhona vele niyohlala ndithola tikhalo tisuka kiwo ema patients mangabe vele abona kwangathi awanakekeleki kahle bese ni wa address kanjani kenini lawo ma issues lawo nilitiko letempilo kukhona mhlambe tinhlelo tikhona within the hospitals noma ama committee within the hospitals labuke tona letindzaba leti kona siqiniseko sokuthi sikhalo sa patient siyanakekeleka kukhona imetamo nendawo nini letempilo noma mhlambe kubakhulumisa lapho bonesi bodokotela ukuthi cha phela ama patients kumgcoka ukuthi siwaphathe kahle
asibonge kakhulu mhlambe asengicale ekuthenini nje isihloko lesiniketwe sona ngo-WHO inhlangano lebuka etempilo kulomnyaka ithi asikhulume ngokuthi let us engage because asesichumane nalabantu labasebenzisa lusito lethu emitholampilo ngesilungu sithi engaging patients for patient safety because nyalo sifuna sichumane nabo singadendeli thina but sichumane nabo basitshele ukuthi naku lokufuna ukuthi nikulungise and kwaphinza wathi ngoba leyo team shothi slogan sakhona sithi elevate the voice of patients ngilakho sibuka ukuthi bonke abantu labeta emtholampilo noma bomncane kangakanani akube nalo ngasitshela kona sikuthathe sikhona kulungisa inhlelo tethu letikhona uthi teke WHO lokufuna sikwendele kulomnyaka kakhulu kuthi nangabe kukhona nakulo sithi ngama policies lokho ngikona kungumgogodla lesikusebenzisako etiko letempilo asibende bafake umvo wabo masikwakha lokho moving forward asibuke ukuthi vele nangabe sakhe policy yaka health bangenile sibisiyileni kubo sayobuta ukuthi lokho singakufaka yini sikwende lo and lokunye ke uthi sibuke kuma structures njalo ukukhuluma ngema committee li committee njalo lesilendako emtholampilo akube li committee lelitawu khona ukuthi lifake nalabantu labamelele labanye emakhaya si community representative nalapha ke ekudesigneni noma ekwakheni inhlelo tethu tekusita labantu nako lapho uthi ababe khona labantu bafake ukuthi nangabe nje sine sesitaba nemjovo wekuvikela njenge covid asitive asibevela abantu silabantu bathini ngalo mjovo lo singakafiki kuko lokho. So ke lapha ke emtholampilo kubuya kulombuzo wakho ke dikhona inhlelo lesinato. Ngokuqala nje kunelihlelo lokuthiwa i-health committee. Kusho siletho ngilelibuke nje ukuthi lifana njenge board ngalibeka kanjalo kuma etinhlelweni letinye tema-business. Shosi leli bantu lababuka ukuthi baluleka lekusebenta kwalowo mtholampilo kuleyo ndzawo. Shosi ayibi yinye ukuthi singathi mhlambe iletulo eParliament naseParliament kukhona lokho i-health portfolio kodwa lena ke ile phasi la kunalo mtholampilo khona. Kusho ukuthi kuba ngilo manager noma ngiloyo lobuke lokusebenta kwaleyo mtholampilo abe nalabanye abantu labanye laba bese banamuye lochamuka lokhethwa ngilesive lochamuka le emangweni ikakhulukazi lochamuka emphakatsini. So lo mvulo uba khona kuleli hlelo leli naye uthatha lemivo yalabantu le abuya tokhuluma ngayo la. Lokunye ke kunetihlelo lesinye leti kuthiwa infection prevention and control. Shosi libuka nje kustifo atithathelwana kuneli committee la khona lapho nakuleli committee lelo kubukwa labanye labakhona la esibhedlela umfulo osebenzisa kakhulu encenye esibhedlela ngiyabe kusathi incenye uthatha emaphilisi noma ekuthinzibalisa noma ashukela bese kuthathwa munye lapho lo ngiyena vele asisebenzisa lesibhedlela kakhulu angene la kulelo committee lelo. Lokunye ke sinelihlelo luhlelo la khona sibuke nalo kuthiwa customer care sibuka nje ukuthi labantu labeta la emtholampilo tikhala utabo titsini kunemuntu esibhedlela lobuke tindzaba nje talabantu labeta ukuthola lusido. Kunemacwaningo kwelesondako i-research kakhulu uma uyilandzelela i-research yethu lucalingo noma ngabe ngiluphi singalenta la esibhedlela kodwa kakhulu luvame ukuthinza labantu kusi labantu mabambamba lokho losekuvelile bathini ngako and futhi kona kubaphatha kanjani noma ngabe sitawenda ihlelo letisha noma ngamaphilisi lamasha noma ngayini sicale sende licwaningo lelitsite sitobona ukuthi le nto leyo lesiyenta lesitabaniketa yona itaba sita kangakanani. So leto tinto letikhona kunengi lokunye lokukhona kune la health nje sine nako lokuthiwa i-surveillance shothi ngilakhona vele kunalo nangabe kunetifo letilistiwe noma letibekiwe kusinangabe kuvela into le kanje kukhona masinyane kubikeke leto tinto leto tifaka khathi bo malaria le try khathi incenye make lo tethwele ke phalosana lo sa angaya sekukhona lokuvelako ekhaya so lokho kusheshe kubikeke masinyane bese sesiyagijima sesiyaku shothi sikubita singama emergencies lawo vele sinehlango silelibuke bonke leto tinto leto ikinto letakahethi letikhona nalokuthi ke vele la kulaba labasebenzako la kwetiko letempilo baya register ngaso sonke isikhathi baya renewa bulunga bakho uma urenewa lobulunga bakho nangabe ungunesi noma ungudokotela kuleti inhlangano bayabona nje baka nursing council bodokotela baya ku dental council so lapho ke kufunaka medical council kusho ba njalo kudingeka ukuthi ube ngumuntu losese lohambelana nalokwendekako kuleso sikhathi ukuthi ufunze awu renew nje ufuna ulethe certificate uze lonyaka ngifunze nako nanako bese kuyabukeka ukuthi vele lo mvulo la kufunzile kusese kukahle yini ungabe umvulo wagcina kathene kufunza ngigogo noma mkhulu kodwa solo sisakacule kajove abantu so kuba nalo lihlolo lolukhona lelenda ukuthi konke lokho kuphephela abantu lesibanakeke lapha.
Okay. So ngifuna ukubuda-ke lapha bange ukuthi siyadeka ukuthi etitolo mhlambe nakuma restaurants kunemthetho lokuthi the customer is always right. Ingabe nasibuka ngala ka health khona lo mthetho loyo apply lokuthi patient is always right. Ngibekise nje uma ngabe i-patient beyisola ikhona ukuthi isolwa ayitholi isito mhlambe kuleyo nesi loyo lothide. So igcina i-patient seyashona noma mhlambe seyigcina kushona umfanakhe lobekamlethe ukuthi atothola lisito. Ingabe vele lapho nasibuka wona nje amalungelo e-patient kanye nanesi ihandlishwa kanjani leyo nkinga leyo addresswa kanjani nasibuka nje nasibuka amalungelo e-patient.
Siyabonga kakhulu sis. Le kubuye kwendeke la kithi siyakwadi lokho ngoba nathi phela sisebenzisa wona i-customer labantu labedala kithi sibantu asima customer ehlukene labanye bato supply labanye bedele ukugula labanye bedele lokwana lokho ethina sinana kulokuthiwa ngema patients rights kusho ukuthi vele lindvo le nangabe sithi umuntu lesikunakekelako ukuthi itsini i-right yalomuntu noko ke ma rights vele siyathi usahamba nema responsibility so sinawo noma ngabe unema rights akho kodwa kukhona nawo lokubheka ukuthi ukwenda so sikuhlola ngaloko thina ukuthi la vele i-right yakhe lo muntu noma ngilokufanele ukuthi vele angabe ukutholile nangabe kungakendeki lokho kusho ukuthi vele i-right yakhe lo muntu sesilimatile sekubida kusivele bese sesithatha itinyathelo letifanele.
Okay. So nasikhuluma ngale patient safety mhlambe sicala kuphi le patient safety sicala nasangena egedeni aze ayongena mhlambe esibhedlela bo surgery room nakuphi yini kahle lena lemele yendeke vele bonesi are they aware ukuthi kumele bende njani kwenda isiqiniseko sekuthi bo ama patients aphephile esibhedlela.
Asibonge luhlelo lwethu thine vele umuntu simsusa ekhaya ngiko sinana kulokuthiwa i-community health just lapho kuna lababuka etempilo le community asengibekise nje nangimake engcenye uTethwele lo mvu loyo vele kanti bonke nje abantu bethu vele so ubuke asele ekhaya so labantu labasebenza kule community lekufaka ikhathi bacucutele labasebenza lemimangweni betiko letempilo ngibo bamnakekela kusukela ekhaya abanye bavakashela emakhaya bayomnakekela khona lo mfloyo so uthi uyeta nje esibhedlela nalaba la esibhedlela nalo segedeni noma ngabe ngilogatse egedeni kufuna vele le safety yalomvu loyo noma lokuphepha kwalomvu losafike la amnakekele lomvu loyo kusukela le gedeni so uhamba nje lo muntu uzuyofika emthini ngoba le safety ifake lokuphepha kufaka ihlangothi letinenge kuphepha la emtimbeni wakho kuphepha futhi kuleti lonke lo sito lesitakuniketa lona nangabe sitakunika liphilisi likufanele nivele wena leliphilisi so ngiko ke lo mfu simthatha ekhaya makafika egedeni uyambuka yena lo sebenza la gedeni usilabantu baba cha bayangena bakahle kube naba labasebenta noma ngabe uyacleana lo mvu naye lo mvu loyo mbamba bafuna nake kuphepha kwalomuntu akusheleli yini lapha kude intinyalithi letikhona maphela semtholampilo letingahlaba lo muntu so uthi uya kunesi na nesi kanjalo makampopola akakuphakamisini kanti lo mvu ulimele so kuphepha konke lokho kube ekudokotela le mithi lamniketa yona lamprescribela yona uhlolile indvele ukuthi kamlungela lo muntu nekuthi ke vele lokugula kwakhe kufuna yiphi le mithi ngoba minengi imithi lekhona emitholampilo so kaze silona lo asingibekise nje bomake enceye betabatohlela ngeke kunenge indlela lokuhlelwa ngato ngeke bese sophezulu awu labanengi make basebenzisa nako nawe siyathi kutakulungela lento le so vele uyamhlohla uyampopola lo muntu ubuke ukuthi vele lokho kutamlungela yini lokho konke lokho kuya ngalokuphepha kwalomuntu ubuke kushaya kwenhlitiyo yakhe ngoba letinye into diphakamisa kushaya kwenhlitiyo ubuke ukuthi emitimbeni wakhe kude lokuphazamisa kungani lo muntu umniketa so lokuphepha vele kuhamba kusukela ekhaya noma so ubuyela futhi ekhaya siphinde siyabuka lo sivele uphephile nalona lokuniketako lo sakuniketa lemithi ukhoneni ukuchazela ngoba lokuchazela mbambamba kusho kuphepha sisuke sendlela ukuthi ukhona kuyisebenzisa kahle le mithi ungasho ukuthi umuthi lotsite bekufuna unathe encenye wena so ushutheka ngoba ayihlukene leyo mthi leyo lo munye ukhansi incesithi ujova so ufika uyawunatha ekhaya njenganaba la bashukela ikumaye kubhlungu lokujova kancane uNkulunkulu udele lento so sibuka konke lo ukuthi nale route lo muthi lona utawukhona vele ukuthi uhambe ngale ndlela yawo lo silona lokuniketa lo muthi ngiko nje ungeke uthathe noma ngangibani ukuthi akambe nalabathi baya dispense abakuniketele mithi so konke into leti lesitibukayo ngiko ke kunehlelo leli so kunehlelo lelibuka
okay so sina 30 seconds
nalaba labasebenzisa nje ema-chemistry vele la ka health kukhona imithetho lethi lona ngabe uyalapha nje uthengela e-chemistry kufuna sikubuke thina ukuthi lona lothengisako ufanele vele kuthengisa
no yevakala simakhulu uthabanga isikhathi sakho mbukelo ukuthi vele litiko tempilo ligubha le yonke lenyanga nje lento siqinisekisa ukuthi sive samaswati siphephile a World Patient Safety Month asibahlotha makethe sitaba sichubekene hlelo
letelkhetho nemingcele tinkundla ngingusihlalo walo libandla sihlanganyela nesive malangeni lamahle kuhalalisela ingwenyama inkosi yethu inkosi Mswati wesithathu minyakeni lamashumi lasihlanu nakuhlanu kanye nelive longana kundiphethe wethu ukuthi lo lingana nako netinsuku tengwenyama letingu 55 nananathi sisive semaswati sina leminyaka ilengu 55 sesikhululekile ngandiphethe siyabonga ke bonkosi sisahalalisele emakhosi ethu nelive ukuthi nebayitolo lekungibona lesithi te basebenta lelive makhosi ayitolo nesive semaswati sonke sayitolo ngoba lokhu lesesifike lamhla siyasakukhanza lesikuhalaliselako ngilokuchamuka kibo lekubita ke ukuthi ke nathi simaswati njengekukhonjwa indlela makhosi ngosi yelive sichubekeni silibeke live libe ngiloko lekungona lesikukhanzile nathi nalokungcono maswati silibandla lelikhetho nemingcele sisahalalisele makhosi nelive ngandiphethe sijinga siphinze futhi siwabongele makhosi ngemsebenzi losetulo eveni welikhetho sisitengcile tigaba tokuqala lebesikito nyalo ke sekuseleke sigaba lesesisetulu ke lokungisona sona ke lesisitawusiniketa iparlamente yethu isinikete futhi emabandla enkundla lokuba ubuchopho ke lobakhiwa induna tetinkundla lekungibona bosihlalo bese ke nabobuchopho bemiphakathi benkundla labakha lobuchopho
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is the news at 7. His Majesty King Mswati III took part in the 78th United Nations General Assembly held in New York. The General Assembly was officially opened by the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who strongly highlighted about the importance of peace in the world and called for action and unity from leaders to solve global problems.
His Majesty King Mswati III arrived at the United Nations headquarters for the 78th United Nations General Assembly. His Majesty is amongst the more than 140 leaders that are part of this year's General Assembly. World leaders have gathered to engage under the theme Rebuilding Trust and Reciting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. The Sustainable Development Goals are 17 in total and have 169 targets that were created to end poverty, promote prosperity and well-being for all, and protect the planet. The General Assembly was officially opened by the Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, who highlighted on the importance of revisiting Sustainable Development Goals. Guterres also pointed out on the determination of keeping peace in the world, sorting out today's challenges for the betterment of the people, and also ensuring food security.
Excellencies, it starts with determination to uphold the Charter's pledge for peace. Yet, instead of ending the scourge of war, we are seeing a surge of conflicts, coups, and chaos. If every country fulfilled its obligations under the Charter, the right to peace would be guaranteed.
The President of the United States of America, His Excellency Joseph Biden, also addressed His Majesty and the leaders at the General Assembly. The President discussed cooperation in tackling threats to international peace and security, advancing global prosperity, and protecting human rights. Biden also appealed to world leaders to stand with Ukraine and also voiced support for the African Union and the Economic Community of West African states as they push against recent coups in Niger and Gabon.
The United Nations must continue to preserve peace, prevent conflict, and alleviate human suffering. And we embrace nations stepping up to lead new ways and to seek new breakthroughs on hard issues.
As the United Nations General Assembly continued under the shadow of the war in Ukraine, the President of Ukraine, His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky, appealed for more support from the United Nations as the situation remains difficult in that country. Other issues that were discussed during the assembly were on the natural disasters that have recently occurred in Morocco and Libya. In Morocco, Atlas Mountains were hit by magnitude earthquake, while in Libya, dams collapsed, sending meters of water throughout several cities. During this General Assembly, heads of states reviewed the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Eswatini is striving and working hard towards attaining these Sustainable Development Goals. During the summit, His Majesty King Mswati III is also expected to address the General Assembly. On the news, I'm Polile Mazia in New York, in the United States of America.
Comes with food.
Magela Mahlangu joined other first ladies in a meeting to discuss the role expected to be played by world leaders in developing the lives of the people in the world and the significant focus on sustainable lifestyle for a healthier world.
The main focus of the event was to celebrate the unprecedented cooperation between diplomacy and fashion for greater good of women and children worldwide. This event featured a special tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for the role played by the Queen in changing and developing most lives globally. The Inkosegati was accompanied by Princess Lindiwe and was shown designer collections designed and created by fashion designers from all over the world. First ladies and UN ambassadors usually gather to honor award recipients during this event. In Africa, the award was given to Tepe Magugu from South Africa. The spokesperson and ambassador of the Human Feed the Hungry organization from the United States of America, Jean Shafirov, said leaders can play a huge role in developing the lives of the people globally.
And this week, we celebrate not only the United States, but the importance of coming together to create change in our world, change that is essential, and change that can only happen through coming together communicating together, and working together. As I look around this room, I see many leaders. It is our obligation to be important role leaders. It is our obligation to create positive environments in our countries where people can work together as teams.
During the event, it was highlighted that fashion may commit in supporting the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and attaining these goals by the year 2030. On another note, His Majesty King Mswati III and Inkosikati Magela Mahlangu attended a state dinner that was hosted by the President of the United States of America, His Excellency Joe Biden, and the First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. This follows the official opening of the main policy making of the United Nations, which is the 78th United Nations General Assembly. The state dinner was also attended by the over 140 leaders that are currently in New York for the General Assembly. On the news, I'm Polile Mazia in New York, in the United States of America.
The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs has been able to achieve its goals of improving the justice system in areas of businesses and cases that need urgent attention in relation to disputes involving money through the successful establishment of the Small Claims Court. The Minister for Justice, Polile Shakantu, says the establishment of the legal program will benefit Emaswati, especially those who cannot afford legal assistance.
Huge concern around the urgent need to attend to money disputes to bring relief to those that are owed small amounts of money of less than 10,000 to 20,000 in Malangeni. The Ministry of Justice established the Small Claims Court. The Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Polile Shakantu, says the specialized tribunal is designed to provide a judicial determination of disputes involving small amounts of money in a less expensive and simple way.
Nanto-ke le Small Claims Court eseyasebenta Maswati akhona ukuthi athole lusito kuleto tinkantolo leto letincane. Nabo somabhizinisi nabo-ke bakhala ukuthi tindzaba tethu.
We were able to set up the Small Claims Court, which is purely meant to help the nation. In the past, we received grievances from local business people around the issues that they felt that some cases need urgent attention. We sat down to find the solution. The commercial court was also established with the assistance from the Chief Justice and judges were appointed, and everything is up and running. We are currently fixing a few things. Government was able to provide infrastructure. This also made a huge difference in eliminating issues of backlog processes. This also made a huge difference in eliminating issues of backlogs, which guarantees efficiency in the judicial processes. Another project that will help Emaswati is the establishment of the legal aid project that was launched recently. We have been able to set up offices and satellite offices which are in some police posts in the country. We also want to visit different communities to create awareness and get views from Emaswati to give them a chance to voice out the kind of help they require.
Shakantu also stated that currently the ministry is working on drafting a number of legislations. Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Themba Shabangu, Babane.
The Kingdom of Eswatini remains the fifth largest sugar producer and the largest net exporter. There is significant potential to increase the existing regional trade through a number of trading blocs, especially SADC, COMESA, and the African Continental Free Trade Area.
The Eswatini Sugar Association has released the 2022-2023 annual report, which reveals that sugar is one of Eswatini's main export commodities, and sugar accounts for about 30.5% of the country's agricultural output. The report states that there is significant potential to increase the existing regional trade through a number of trading opportunities, especially SADC, COMESA, East African Community, and of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The report says the sugar industry aims to continue working with government to improve preferential access for Eswatini sugar to other parts of Africa through regional markets. The demand center for Eswatini sugar, comprising of South Africa, Lesotho, Botswana, and Namibia, which currently offers good and sustainable value for Eswatini sugar. According to the report, a threat remains, which is that markets are being susceptible to low-priced imports, either due to special import regimes allowed for non-sugar producers in the region or general market protection being eroded by a lower sugar import tariff. The report states that the South African Sugar Value Chain Master Plan contains a specific intent to reduce sugar imports into South Africa and encourages domestic consumers to buy local. This continues to pose a threat to Eswatini sugar sales into the South African markets. This year, sales into SACU represented 66% of Eswatini sugar, while in 2021-2022 recorded 67%. The report states that the slight reduction from previous year's sales was due to lower production later in the season, which resulted in some of the SACU suppliers being rationed. For Eswatini TV News on Domlangeni, pictures sourced from Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority.
With the aim of improving the health of Mbabane residents, the Municipal Council of Mbabane has extended its health care services to over 25,000 people in a period of 1 year. This is contained in the municipal's annual report for the year 2022-2023.
The report, which is yet to be discussed by stakeholders who include residents of Mbabane, highlights that the health services were offered through outreach initiatives as well as through outpatients who visited the council's clinic. Some of the services the municipal council rendered are the vaccination of children, antenatal care, COVID-19 vaccination, and voluntary male circumcision. The report further says over 2 million condoms were distributed to the public for people to protect themselves against sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV. On elderly health care, the report highlights that the Municipal Council worked in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and private clinics in screening and providing medication for different ailments that the elderly presented with, which include non-communicable diseases. The Municipal Council also ensured that persons with disabilities are not left out of its social responsibility programs by supporting Egotembeni special school pupils to participate in sports. Also supported was the Association of the Deaf, who participated in the Mayor's Tournament, co-sponsored by Mbabane and Manzini Municipal Councils and hosted in Manzini City. On the news, I'm Mbongwa Dube in Mbabane.
The manager of cybersecurity at Eswatini Communications Commission, Nokuthula Hlophe, has urged the nation to familiarize themselves with the Cybercrime Act. She says this is to make sure that people do not commit cybercrimes unintentionally and face prison time or hefty fines.
Eswatini Communications Commission's manager of cybersecurity, Nokuthula Hlophe, has pleaded with the nation to make themselves well-versed with the Cybercrimes Act, so as to avoid breaking the law unintentionally.
Basically, the Computer Crime and Cybercrime Act was passed last year in March. It criminalizes offenses that are done in the cyberspace. And it also gives ESCOM power to regulate cybersecurity and also makes provision for an advisory council to be set up within the DPM's office. So basically, it kind of states the crimes that we normally do in the physical space, but that we now do in the cyberspace or in the computer world. So there's about 28 offenses, it's quite a lot. The Act talks to cyberbullying. It talks about xenophobia, hate speech. It talks about cyber stalking, cyber harassment.
Hlophe further stated that people should avoid using hate speech, xenophobic language, and discriminatory language. This is because if found guilty, the perpetrators will be fined 10 million emalangeni, be imprisoned, or both. Reporting for Eswatini TV, Sigcineko Simelane in Mbabane.
Mashome Shongwe's case that is before Judge Mamsi Dlamini has been postponed to next week Tuesday. This decision is due to the fact that Tema Pengeta Shongwe's lawyer did not show up in court.
Tema Pengeta Shongwe, Mashumi Shongwe's daughter, took her father to court in a bid to stop him from selling a family home in Hlangano. This case was before Judge Mamsi Dlamini on Tuesday. Tema Pengeta's lawyer, Nomthandazo Gule, did not show up in court, while Mashumi Shongwe's lawyer, Sandile Dlamini, was present. It turned out that some important documents were missing. Judge Mamsi Dlamini asked Mashumi's lawyer the solution towards the missing documents and the absent lawyer. Mashumi Shongwe's lawyer submitted before court that it would be ideal that the court postpone the matter, as this will help to ensure that the required documents are provided before court. Judge Mamsi also raised concerns that she received no communication regarding the documents. Judge Mamsi then postponed the matter to the 26th of September 2023. Mashumi Shongwe stands accused by her daughter that he allegedly wants to sell their home, which they share with Shongwe's deceased wife. Tema Pengeta made the court aware that she allegedly saw their home being advertised in a real estate agency. Tema Pengeta is requesting the court to stop her father from selling the home. Mashumi Shongwe presented before the court that he has no say over the home. Mashumi alleges that he has made it clear before the office of the Master of the High Court that he doesn't want to be part of the list of beneficiaries because the home should remain with Tema Pengeta and Sibusiso Shongwe. Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Themba Shabangu, High Court.
The country's programs aimed at reversing the damage already done to the environment can be successful if the youth were to be fully involved. These were the sentiments of Kusile Mhlanga, the communications officer of Eswatini Environmental Authority. Kusile was speaking during a workshop where the Eswatini Environmental Authority and young people under Hlumisa Eswatini Youth Organization had discussions on available opportunities in agroecology.
We have a growing number of youth organizations that are in the environment sector, and one of the key issues or challenges that they are facing is proposal writing and coming up with bankable proposals that can allow them to have access to the different funding mechanisms. As they develop this intervention, they have to make sure that they are environmentally sustainable. They also have to show some element of economic sustainability and also have considerations for social issues.
One of the youth participants in the meeting, Zandisile Hau, says it is high time the youth embraced agriculture.
Because as a country, we have food insecurity, we have food malnutrition, of which I think it's very important for young people to participate in the space so we can contribute. And in a way, it creates the space for employment opportunities for young people, that also agriculture has become modernized. It's not always about the dirt anymore, but there's the climate smart agriculture that we can also participate in. And agroecology helps with bridging the gap of it, making it sustainable by saving the environment, as well as creating food for the nation for all of us to eat.
Voluntary Service Overseas Organization, which has a footprint in 28 countries in Africa, was represented in the workshop, and it encouraged the youth to make applications for funding to implement their environmentally friendly agricultural projects. On the news, I'm Mbongwa Dube with Sebenele Mthethwa in Manzini.
International news. At the United Nations General Assembly in New York, U.S. President Joe Biden denounced Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine as a violation of a core tenet of the UN Charter.
Addressing the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, President Joe Biden renewed his call for international support for Ukraine.
If we abandon the core principles of the United States to appease an aggressor, can any member state in this body feel confident that they are protected? If we allow Ukraine to be carved up, is the independence of any nation secure?
This is the second year Biden has rallied for Ukraine in front of the world body. But amid global South concerns that Ukraine dominates the meeting at the cost of other challenges, Biden did not mention Russia's invasion until minute 22 of his 27-minute speech. While a majority of countries supported a resolution condemning Russia's invasion last year, many are increasingly concerned about the war's toll on global energy and food prices. There are now growing calls from the global South to fast-track peace negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv.
We do not underestimate the difficulties in achieving peace, but no solution will be lasting if it is not based on dialogue. I have reiterated that work needs to be done to create space for negotiations.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made his own appeal in his first in-person appearance at the General Assembly since the invasion.
And it is a clear Russia's attempt to weaponize the food shortage on the global market in exchange for recognition for some, if not all, of the captured territories.
With leaders from China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom skipping the summit, Biden is the only leader of a UN Security Council permanent member attending. He outlined U.S. efforts to mobilize resources for global infrastructure projects, reform international institutions to make them more inclusive, and address other global challenges.
Record-breaking heat waves in the United States and China, wildfires ravaging North America and Southern Europe, a fifth year of drought in the Horn of Africa, tragic flooding in Libya. My heart goes out to the people of Libya that's killed thousands of people. Together, these snapshots tell an urgent story of what awaits us if we fail to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and begin to climate-proof the world.
Activists say more needs to be done as thousands of them march outside, demanding that the Biden administration end new fossil fuel projects.
Russia struck 3 industrial warehouses in a drone strike on the western Ukrainian city of Lviv early on Tuesday, causing a huge fire and killing at least one person.
The drone struck around 5 a.m., hitting 3 warehouses. The resulting fire covered a total area of about 10,000 square meters. Ukraine's State Emergency Service reported that the body of one person had been found and that 2 people were rescued from the rubble. Employees arrived a few hours later to find firefighters still working to put out the blaze.
The police won't let us in. We have to wait until the fire is extinguished. My car is still there, but they say it's intact. We'll see how it goes.
Lviv has been one of the safest cities in Ukraine, but is increasingly being targeted by Russian attacks in recent months. Moscow has repeatedly targeted infrastructure critical to Ukraine's defense, energy system and agriculture, but many civilians have also been killed. The town's mayor said that these warehouses were not used for military purposes. 2 contained wooden windows and doors and household chemicals, and 1 was used by a charity.
They'd just received humanitarian aid, warm clothing, generators that they were planning to send across Ukraine. Now all of this is on fire. Food, consumer goods are on fire. The damage from this amounts not to millions, but to hundreds of millions. This is one of the most enormous fires in terms of damage and material value.
Ukraine's Air Force said Russia had launched a total of 30 drones and 1 ballistic missile on Ukraine overnight, and that 27 of the drones had been shot down. The southern city of Kherson was also hit, killing a policeman and wounding 2 civilians on a trolley bus.
Fresh fighting broke out between Mali's army and northern Tuareg rebels on Sunday, with the rebels claiming to have taken control of 2 army bases in the central town of Lira. The rebel alliance, called the Coordination of Azawad Movements, has been fighting the army since August, a conflict unleashed in part by the departure of United Nations peacekeeping mission that for years had helped maintain a fragile calm.
This video was taken on Sunday in and around the Lere military camp in northern Mali. The Malian army fighting against mostly Tuareg rebels. The Coordination of Azawad Movements, the CMA, claimed responsibility for this attack on 2 bases located in the town of Lere, from which they then withdrew. Last week, the CMA also briefly seized the Brem military camp before being pushed back. These clashes are a setback for the Malian army, which must now face the opening of a new front.
A second front is opening up. There was already the front against the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda jihadists, and a deteriorating security situation due to intensified terrorist activity. And now this new front, with the signatories of the 2015 accord, which was supposed to reconcile the former Tuareg rebels with the Malian authorities.
A few days ago, the coordination of Azawad movements declared itself at war with the Bamako junta. What's known as the Algiers Agreement was supposed to set up a truce, but has only been partially applied. Signed in 2015 between the central power, pro-government militias and the CMA, it put an end to several years of conflict. At stake, the control of his northern region. Tuareg rebels, jihadists and Malian armed forces are fighting over this territory. Tensions have been rekindled by the arrival in power of the junta, the call for the UN peacekeeping mission's withdrawal, and the emergence of a new player, the Wagner Group.
The United Nations Support Mission in Libya warned Monday that an outbreak of diseases in the country's northeast, where floods have killed over 11,000 people, could create a second devastating crisis. The floods have also raised concerns about the ancient ruins of Cyrene, with UNESCO saying on Monday the ancient Greco-Roman city lies roughly 37 miles east of Derna.
These are the ancient ruins of Cyrene, the oldest cultural jewel of eastern Libya. Its foundations now under threat.
All this water here that you see flowing is absolutely not normal.
Archaeologists say the steady stream of floodwater is increasing. They're trying to stop the stagnant flow, weakening the remains of this 2,500-year-old former Greek, then Roman city. You can see from the before and after images how parts of this coastal landscape were ripped apart by Storm Daniel and the collapse of two dams here. Even the road to access the UNESCO site washed away in the torrent. The fact that Cyrene is 100 kilometres from Derna tells us the scale of the flooding. The worst hit city that's lost at least 10% of its population, more than 11,000 lives lost. International search teams continue their mission to find the many missing. Though the window for the rescue long past, recovery the focus. Grief has turned to anger here, with huge protests at the weekend. They're demanding local officials be held accountable, claiming that the poor state of infrastructure allowed a natural disaster to spiral into a man-made catastrophe.
In our sports news, it's Mbabane Swallows versus Mbabane Highlanders in the playoffs of the Momo Cup tournament, while Pigs Peak Black Swallows will play Lozita Spurs. The two winners will then face Nsingizino Hotspurs and Manini Pirates, respectively, in semi-finals to be played on the 1st of October this year. To the end of our English bulletin. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
Lelibandla letelkhetho nemingcele tinkundla ngingusihlalo walo libandla sihlanganyela nesive malangeni lamahle kuhalalisela ingwenyama inkosi yethu inkosi Mswati wesithathu minyakeni lamashumi lasihlanu nakuhlanu kanye nelive longana kundiphethe wethu ukuthi lo lingana nabo netinsuku tengwenyama letingu 55 nananathi sisive seMaswati sina leminyaka ilengu 55 sesikhululekile ngandiphethe. Siyabonga ke bonkosi sisahalalise lemakhosi ethu nelive ukuthi nebayitolo lekungibona lesithi te basebenta lelive makhosi ayitolo nesive seMaswati sonke sayitolo ngoba lokhu lesesifike lamhla siyasakukhanza lesikuhalaliselako ngilokuqhamuka kibo lekubita-ke ukuthi-ke nathi simaswati njengekukhonjwa indlela amakhosi nkosi yelive sichubekeni silibeke live libe ngiloko lekungona lesikukhanzile nathi nalokungcono. Maswati silibandla leli likhethwe nemingcele sisahalalisele makhosi nelive ngandiphethe sijinga siphinze futhi siwabongele makhosi ngemsebenzi losetulo eveni welikhetho sisidengcile tigaba tokuqala lebesikito nyalo ke sekuseleke sigaba lesisisetulo ke yokungisona sona ke lesi sitawusiniketa iparlamente yethu isinikete futhi emabandla enkundla lekuba ubucopho ke lobakhiwa induna tetinkundla lekungibona bosihlalo bese ke nabo ubucopho bemiphakathi benkundla labakha lobucopho lelibandla lenkundla lekungilona lelisebenzisana kanye neparlamente nahulumende welive leMaswati wonkana. Bongosi emalanga umuntu akandlulise lokuthi umhla ka-26 we-special voting bese ulandzela ke umhla ka-29
Phindze sikwamukele lihlelweni ingwane lomuhle is 34 minutes after 7 siyabonga ukuthi solo uhleli nathi eluhlelweni in 2019 umnyaka wa 2019 nearly a billion people including 14% of the world's adolescents were living with a mental disorder. Suicide accounted for more than 1 in 100 deaths and 58% of suicides occurred before the age of 50. Mental disorders are the leading cause of disability, causing 1 in 6 years lived with disability. People with severe mental health conditions die on average 10 to 20 years earlier than the general population, mostly due to preventable physical diseases. Now, this is according to a World Health Organization report which urges mental health decision makers and advocates to step up commitment and action to change attitudes, actions and approaches to mental health and what determinants are, as well as mental health care in general. Here's Dr. Gagu Matsebula. He's a specialist psychiatrist who will help us understand this problem. Mkolo, a very good morning to you. Quite alarming stats from World Health Organization, and they are quite recent. That's about 2019. It's not so far ago. This is a big problem, and I'm calling it a problem because we are devalued number related. How serious is this problem, and how urgent should we address it? And lama commitments and efforts towards addressing it are kona invela.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Mnguni. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity. So, mental health is a growing problem. It is a significant problem. La Eswatini, indeed worldwide. The statistics which you have quoted are shaya corner. I mean, if we look at suicide in Jay, we do know in the Southern African region, we're looking at about 13,000 men that have died through suicide, and we're looking at about 9,000 women. It is really significant. And nasi kuluma nge mental health, we're not just talking about the absence of mental illness, but we're talking about the social aspect of that person and the social aspect of le live lapho lo muntu ahlala khona. When we talk about mental illness, bantu bayaye bacabanga ukuthi mhlawumbe umuntu lo ngakhona ukudila ne-stress, or they think ukuthi ngumuntu lo vilaphako. Yes, nezinto ezinjalo. Unfortunately, the reality is uma umuntu ane mental illness, le ngqondo bese iyalimala, iyashintsha physically. And what we see is tinto letifanana na bo memory, bo concentration. In other words, the functions that a person needs kusebenta kahle emsebentini noma esikolweni bese kuyathikamezeka. When that happens, the person can't work. When that happens, it means ukuthi umuntu sekufuna ahamba ohlala ekhaya. And if you look at that on a macroeconomic scale, then it means ukuthi if you've got a reduced workforce, or a workforce which is not as effective as you would like, then it means ne GDP yelive, the economy yelive nayo takes a knock. So mental illness is really, really significant.
And what are the causes of all these things that you are highlighting, Dr. Kaku? You said 13,000 men, 9,000 women. That's 22,000 in total. That's very scary to me. What are the causes of these things, and how do we solve it? I mean, this is happening in the backdrop of the United Nations General Assembly, where health is the priority. It's at the top of the conversations they want to have at the General Assembly. How far are we in terms of national commitments and global commitments to solving this thing? You said it's a growing problem. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I think there is the awareness, indeed worldwide, about the significance of mental illness. I think the challenge is what can I call them, priorities? There are certain priorities which are more demanding of states' attention. We're talking about things like wars in some places. We're talking about things like poverty. We're talking about things like non-communicable diseases like high blood pressure and diabetes. So unfortunately, these tend to draw a lot of attention. But what we see happening is this increasing awareness. Lokuthi ne mental health nayo does need to be put up there, and it should be more than just lip service.
Yeah.
And I think evidence of that will be more companies that are now starting to refer people that they're worried about through their wellness centers. Ngibekise nje mhlawumbe la ngisebenza khona, my employer says, I'm worried about Dr. Matsebula. He seems to be coming in late. When he gets to work, he's very irritable. His efficacy at work is starting to go down. Let's send him to someone. So that is growing. But what I think would be ideal would be if there's some form of legislature as well, the way we can legislate someone being booked off work when they've had a stroke or a heart attack, if we can do the same thing as well, and if we can also do what's starting to happen definitely in the Northern Hemisphere, where people are now starting to take mental health days, where a person is able to go off and to maybe go seek therapy and to go see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, you've touched on two things I want to delve into. You've spoken about, the employer and employee relationship and, the mental health dynamic in the workplace. I want us to talk about that, but I also want us to talk about legislation. So let's start with the employer and employee mental health dynamic. There's word in the street, you'll correct me, that there seems to be a widespread, rather growing number of employees coming to seek mental health services. How true is that locally?
So that is true. In the clinic that we run at Linamandla Medical Center, we are seeing a significant number of employees that either bring themselves for assistance or that are referred by their employers for assistance. So that is true. If you look at an employee and an employer, at the end of the day, these are human beings. And each and every human being is equally susceptible to stress. And we do know that significant amounts of stress do open the door to things like depression and anxiety. So the workplace tends to be a microcosm or a reflection of what's happening in greater society. And yes, even though we are seeing employees, we are also seeing employers as well, bringing themselves for assistance.
That's quite interesting. The World Health Organization also reports that depression and anxiety went up by more than 25% in the first year of the pandemic alone. Looking at post-COVID recovery in Eswatini and, obviously the civil unrest and what happened to a lot of businesses. And I can see employers and business people, being struck mentally and having to come to you guys to seek your services. It's also interesting to me. I'm really concerned about the employee because I'm an employee myself. Not saying that I have problems, but I just want to speak for the general employee. What are the causes really of their stresses in the workplace?
Thank you for that. So when we speak about stress in Dautala Lab, we're speaking about the person feeling overwhelmed, feeling as if the situation that they are facing has got no outcome or no solution. In the workplace, there tends to be a lot of pressure on employees to perform. You must produce, you must be efficacious, even though in many instances the material or the resources that the employee needs to be able to produce whatever is required, you find that those resources are in short supply if they are present at all. And you may find that when the employee tries to raise this, the employer isn't, so receptive of the employee's reports. And that unfortunately leads a lot of people to feel as if it doesn't seem that there's going to be a logical outcome to this. And what people start to do is they may start to maybe take alcohol as a way of trying to reduce the stress that they are feeling.
And that probably exacerbates it, funny enough, ironically. Let's talk about mental health care, mental care affordability. I think, especially in these trying economic times, you will agree with me, what is happening with inflation, just globally as well as nationally, it should be quite, difficult for someone to access any form of health service, and therefore this is when we see people asking for subsidized methods of. But I want us to talk about mental health care affordability. Is it affordable? That's the first question. And two, are people affording it?
That is such an excellent question, Mgoni. So what you're touching on is what are called an economic determinant of health.
Right.
The finances, economic state of the person, the state, in order to access healthcare. It depends on the stage at which the person presents for care.
Okay.
If the person comes in the early phases, and when I speak about early phases, maybe the person is aware that maybe they're not sleeping too well, maybe they're feeling that much more irritable, there's this slight reduction in memory, concentration, it's more affordable because all you need there is maybe a couple of sessions with me or my team, including psychologists. But if you find that now things have become bad, things are so bad that maybe you've been suspended from work or you're unable to work, or maybe you've even been fired or dismissed either from work or expelled from school, then there the intervention has to be much more intensive. There now we're talking about medications. In really severe cases, now we're talking about admission, and unfortunately those ones then do become a bit costly. The short answer to your question, Mguni, is, and I'm sure everyone has heard this, prevention is better than cure. And that's something I'd love to talk to you about if we have time.
We do.
It tends to be much more cheaper, much more cost-effective for people to prevent illness, for people to protect their mental health.
And by preventing mental health, as we are, premising this, and prevention is better than cure, and I assume that you mean people should come through early phases, one, and two, you don't necessarily have to believe that you are going through something. You just want to consult and make sure that you are not going through something. I think that's what you're alluding to. When you talk about early phases, Dr. Matsebula, it's very interesting to me because how do I know that I should probably go to Dr. Matsebula and, he should assess me if I'm going through something?
Thank you for that. So yes, I'll answer your question in two ways. The first is we do have what are called wellness visits, where a person just comes either to me or to any clinician and you just come for a checkup. In terms of how do you see that things are starting to change, every single person knows who they are and what their personality is like. Everyone knows that when I wake up in the morning, this is how I feel. When I go to work or I'm going to any commitment, this is how I usually feel. This is what my appetite is. This is what my weight is. The way I think about things, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
The moment a person starts to realize that my sleep now is changing, either I'm sleeping too much or too little. When I wake up in the morning, I feel very tired. My appetite maybe starts to go up and I want to eat sweet, savory things, or it goes down. Memory, concentration gets bad. Or worryingly, when the person starts to notice unhealthy ways of thinking. Sometimes people think about death. Sometimes their self-esteem starts to go down. In those moments, we do strongly recommend eMaswati to present for care, because the care is readily available and it is effective.
Wow, I feel like you've just diagnosed me. I may have to come for a consultation. I will want us to re-highlight the signs because I was going to ask you that question, towards the end of our conversation. I think it's very important that people become self-aware when it comes to, the signs and all those things that you just highlighted. World Health Organizations calling on all stakeholders and everyone in society to deepen the commitments towards, realizing what mental health is. Let's talk about the awareness in Eswatini, as World Health Organization emphasizes that awareness is quite critical.
So the awareness definitely is there, thankfully.
Okay.
But I feel it can be better.
Right.
And I think one of the big things that prevents eMaswati from seeking care is stigma. Mental illness, unfortunately, still viewed as a person being lazy or being weak or being unable to deal with stresses. In some instances, there's going to be a belief that, this person has bewitched. And I'm not saying this to invalidate people's beliefs. But these are the things that we see that tend to hinder eMaswati and indeed, other societies from seeking assistance.
It's quite interesting. We are, at the process of elections right now. We've seen some people get nominated and not qualify on the primary elections. We will be seeing the secondary elections. Some people will not make it, and become the eventual members of parliament and, of course, the other positions. And we've heard this conversation around that as well, that some of them may not be necessarily able to deal with the consequences of, I wouldn't call it failing, but of not making it. I suppose mental health then comes in there again, because some of these people, I think some of the requirements from the Elections Boundaries Commission is that you need to stop whatever it is that you're doing professionally and focus on just the elections. So now I've stopped what I'm doing professionally. I'm focusing on the elections and I don't make it. That surely takes a mental toll on me. Talk to me about how these people can deal with this kind of situation, and especially us, the general public. You've spoken about stigma, how we should accommodate these people socially.
Thank you for that. So indeed, when a person has got a particular ambition or a goal which they feel is very significant, either for them or for their family or for the society at large, and if they should be unable to achieve that ambition for whatever reason, it can be quite detrimental. And this stress that they may get, in some instances, it might be temporary. There will be the disappointment. Yes, they will feel that I have not been able to achieve what I wanted.
Right.
And then they'll be able to revert back to whatever it is that they were doing. But in many circumstances, when a person is unable to achieve whatever ambition that they had, and things start to go sideways, in many instances, you tend to find that there are many other stressors or failures that that person has experienced in their life. And when that happens, indeed, it opens the door to mental illness. How can we support them as society? I think we do need to be more empathetic. When a person starts to talk about how disappointed they are or how low they're feeling because of whatever is going on in their life, I think it's extremely helpful for us as general society to give these people a sympathetic ear and, not to dismiss what they're saying and not to say, but to actually listen and to tell them that, look, if you feel that things are not going too well, go to your clinician. Maybe there's something that you can get to be helped.
So I'm getting the sense that you are saying we should reshape in fact, every environment that influence mental health, including homes, communities, schools, workplaces, healthcare services, natural environments, in fact, everything. I want us to revert back again to the science, and I think this is our parting, last point. The science, very important.
So thank you. So the stuff that I've spoken about in terms of sleep, appetite, in men, changes in libido. In other words, a man is going to go to his doctor and say, these strange headaches that are always there. The person takes painkillers, but the headaches don't go away. Starting to think about death. You could be sitting like we're sitting now in the studio, and you start to notice that you're getting worried or you're getting scared for no particular reason. Those tend to be the warning signs for a person to go seek help. Or if you, maybe as a parent or a partner to someone or a friend or even a colleague, you notice that this person now is no longer the way they are. They either seem more sad, or they're more irritable, or they're struggling with their work, or in severe cases, they don't come to work at all. We must start to talk to people. We must be more sympathetic. We must be more welcoming of people's difficulties, and to point them in the right direction, which is healthcare.
Scaling up options and just mental health options in terms of services. I'm thinking, I know you as Dr. Gago Matsebula. I knew you before you got here. Your reputation precedes you. I'm wondering though, because it could be my ignorance. In Eswatini, I'm really concerned. Do we have enough psychiatry specialists? I don't want to see a situation where a relative of mine from Lendubaz and Hlangano has to come all the way to Lina Mandla in Babane to access services. Would you say, I'm sure you're very much aware of the whole ecosystem in the country, would you say we are well resourced in terms of, stations?
And unfortunately, in terms of psychiatrists, and indeed other medical specialists, I think more can be done. Right. In terms of my profession, I understand that I'm the only psychiatrist in the private sector in the country. And then in the state sector, my colleague, Dr. Mwanjali, at the National Psychiatric Referral Hospital, Gamanzini, she's the only one that's there. Okay. However, what we do try to do, I do know that in state and definitely in private, we do try to capacitate our colleagues that are not psychiatrists, like your general practitioners or other specialists. We do try to capacitate them to help them realize that if, say, for example, a person that is 45, they present with these headaches that are not getting better, or, their libido is not what it should be, they should think of things like depression and anxiety. It should be there. Yes, they'll do the workup and look for other diseases, but these other illnesses should be there. Can things be improved in terms of the availability of specialists in the country? I think so. I think so.
Private sector and state as well.
Private and state, yes.
Dr. Gago Matsebula, thank you so much for your time this morning. Very much appreciate your insights this morning. Dr. Gago Matsebula, psychiatrist, specialist with Lina Mandla, just giving us, things that we really need to do to overcome mental health care, or rather mental stigma around the country as well as globally. Really appreciate his insights. Let's take a quick break.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards.
This is Eswatini TV News. Umsakato wetithombe Eswatini TV ehlangothini lebetindzaba umengemumo. Ngalesihlanu mhla tinge-27 kulesetu. Utsaselita lo msakato titabe titsacitsisaka kutototine tifundza telive leSwatini totonke tikhungo tekuvotela tikuletsela konke lokutabe kwenteka elikhethweni elikhulu. Kanti-ke indzaba itabe icale mhla tinge-26 kulesetulu esigabeni la kutabe kuvota khona labo labaniketwe imvumo yekuvota esigabeni lesithi special voting.
Kusukela ngesimbi yesikhombisa ekseni kude kuphume yona imiphumela, libandla letindzaba litawube lifake likhala phansi licubungula liphindze libuya nato tinjengobe tinjalo likulethela bukhoma kumabonakudze wakho nasetinkundleni tekuchumana. Leti tindzaba telukhetfo lolukhulu lwa 2023 singete sasala nakwakhiwa live letfu.
Alright, it's 3 minutes before kubumbane insimbi yesiphohlongo lomuhla ekseni kungu lesithathu lungelele. We just had an interesting conversation with Dr. Kaku Matsabula indzaba ye mental health. Nasicala lihlelo uyitsinzile indzaba ke ukuthi njengoba kune United Nations General Assembly indzaba lengundzaba mlonyeni noma lesingasho ukuthi bayihambisa embili tindzaba tetembili. Yayitsinza ke Mr. Matsabula indzaba ukuthi ngathi le mental health is a lip service. Kusete kahle lama commitments bese bawaletha into undertaking which is quite concerning.
I think you guys talked about indzaba ye weight labanye uva bakhala ukuthi bayabacala mhlambe etikolweni mhlambe emsebenzini ngewethi nanazofika ekhaya uthi am I big, am I huge, yabo sokucala uyicabanga lemvo say leading to depression, sokucabanga kakhulu sekuya affect now. So
especially today times have definitely changed. Lungelele, you will agree with me. Growing up sikhule kunemidlalo bese bethe kuthi kunyongana. At the time it was normal. Nyalo, we come from different societies. So some kids grow up protected kakhulu. Nomnyonga loyo, it takes a toll on their self-esteem and their mental health. So letinye tinto leto lokufuna ukuthi sibe wary of. But I think it was very interesting your conversation as well that you had nabeltiko letempilo. That was very insightful.
Yeah. All right. We hope on the show. Worry not. You can still watch this episode of Kusile Breakfast Show on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Have a lovely day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Elections and Boundaries Commission bathi sasive ukuthi kuvota ngalokukhethekile